My name is Jason Siegel. I'm a professor of psychology at Claremont Graduate University. My research is on mental health communication. How do you talk about mental health? How do you advertise about mental health? And most importantly, how do you get people to seek help when they're struggling with their mental health? Welcome to Ask an Academic. Let me go to the first question. Love this one. What is the difference between a therapist, a psychologist, a psychiatrist? I am very happy for this question because it's very common. People ask me what I do. And when I mention I'm a psychological researcher, they right away get nervous and say, "Are you reading my mind?" I have to let them know that's not the type of psychology I do. There are psychiatrists. They're the ones who write out the medication prescriptions. There are psychologists. Those are the ones who give therapy. Then there are the psychological researchers. We take all the great work in psychology, and what I try to do with my students is we apply it to the real world. Everything that I do is taking psychological research and figuring out how do we do it to help people. But I don't prescribe meds. I'm not a clinician. I don't want to hear about your relationship with your mother. I really wouldn't know what to do if you told me. Okay, another question. How did I get into this field, into this career? It's sort of an odd story. When I was in high school, like approximately 20% of adolescents these days, I experienced depression. And what I wanted to do after I made it through high school was to create movies, write screenplays. I was influenced by things like The Breakfast Club, Heathers, Pump Up the Volume, Kid of the 80s. So I wanted to make movies and TV programming to help other adolescents with depression. I was very fortunate. I ended up working for one of the major networks in Los Angeles, went from New York to LA. I ended up, though, working on a talk show called Jim J. and Tammy Faye. And it was right around the time that Tammy Faye Baker was crying on my shoulder, I think it was this one, that I realized I may have missed my target. I wanted to help people with depression live better lives, and yet I was doing talk shows about laundry detergent. Fortunately, I had a great mentor at Brooklyn College where I did my undergrad. He explained to me there's a great career being a professor. You could teach, you could mentor, and you could apply for grants and contracts where you could create campaigns to help people. When I started graduate school, people weren't doing this research. People weren't curious about how mental health messages affect people differently, which is what I wanted to do. So I made my bones, so to say, doing drug prevention media. After about 10 years out of grad school, I finally got to start studying why I went to graduate school. Depression. It's been about 10 years doing this. Most recently, I co-edited a handbook on mental health communication, and I'm really happy to say I am exactly where I want to be in my life right now. We just got another question, probably from a student. How do I avoid burnout during the school year, and especially at the end of the semester? One thing I always tell the students is they have to come first. They have to find time in their schedule for themselves. Once they burn out, their ability to study, their ability to thrive, the ability to take care of their spouses, their children, their parents, all of that goes away. And I know we all think, let me just push a little further. It's not worth the risk. I always tell my students that I prefer the student who studies 5 days a week than 7. Even though the person who studies 7 days a week might get more stuff done at first, I know at one point they're going to write to me and say, I can't keep pushing. I need to take off 2 weeks. I'm burnt out. I'm depressed. Now, certainly you could be burnt out and not depressed. You could be depressed and not burnt out. But either way, there's a lot of negative affect involved, and you will not be performing at your best. You must take nights off, take days off, and you must take time for yourself, or else you're really not going to be good for anyone. Not yourself, not your family. Someone just asked, is it possible to treat depression? 1,000%. But first, let me say that if someone with depression does not get help, it is very unlikely they will get better on their own. And it is certainly possible that it can get worse. 90% of people who seek help get better. The depressogenic schema, it's a tough enemy, but it's defeatable. I always think of it like the boss at the end of a video game. The first time you go up against the boss, you get beat up. Then you start realizing, oh wait, the boss blinks right before they throw a punch. You wait for the blink, then you throw the punch. You can figure out the big boss at the end of a video game. Depression's the same way. It is not unbeatable. They could get therapy, medication. There are also things like magnetic brain stimulation, neuro and biofeedback. We could put someone on the moon. We did that 60 years ago. Trust me, we can help someone with depression. This next question is one I've probably spent the past decade attacking. Why is it so hard for people with depression to seek help? First, 60% of people actually do seek help for depression. About 60% in America nationwide are able to seek help. Now that sounds good. The problem is 40% of people are not seeking help. Depression's different than other illnesses. Like if you have a toothache, a backache, we ignore it. Then finally, when it gets so bad that we can't sleep or study, we call the dentist. Depression's a little different. The more depressed someone is, the less they believe that help seeking is going to matter. And this is not just the general population. We did a study with medical residents. The more depressed the medical resident, the less they believe seeking help is going to matter, and the more effortful they think it is. Why? It's because of the illness. It's overall a processing disorder. People with depression process information with a steadfast, unwavering negative bias. They may hear 100 things that are positive and one that's neutral. They will process the neutral thing as negative, and they will have involuntary, consistent thoughts about that piece of information. They can't snap out of it. You are no more able to fly right now than they are to just shut those thoughts off and go about their day. Trust me, it affects your thoughts about everything about yourself. And unfortunately, help seeking does not get a pardon from this. Messages about help seeking are processed through the same schema that all other information is, which means there's going to be a steadfast negative bias. This is why many, not all, but some messages encouraging people to seek help with depression actually backfire. That is why it takes knowing the science of clinical psychology, cognitive psychology, and persuasion. You can't know just one. Only by bringing them together are you going to get a roadmap that's really going to teach you how to get people with depression to seek help. When most people do seek help for depression, they are pleasantly surprised by the amount of support they are going to receive. The next question's a tough one. Can I persuade someone with depression to seek help? You are likely the best person. If you have a close friend or family member who is depressed, you can save their life. So the first step in helping someone who has depression is recognizing that they have it. Depression is associated with a strong negative bias. They're going to start seeing negativity in a lot of the things they are looking at. You will also likely start to see all or nothing thinking. I will never be good at this. I will never succeed. You're also going to see them possibly doing what's called minimizing and maximizing. They're going to minimize anything positive, but anything negative is going to be top of mind. It's going to stay there. They also might have a change in their sleeping or their eating patterns. And absolutely, if someone is talking about death or hurting themselves, get them to a hospital immediately. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Get them to the hospital. There is no specific formula or step-by-step guide, and everyone is different. But let me give you some different things that can work. First, ask them if they realize they're struggling with depression. Most people don't realize it. And most people are not going to right away say, I think I have an illness that needs treatment. But as someone who is not depressed, you could be the person letting them know that. You also have to remind them that seeking help can be beneficial. 90% of people who seek treatment recover from depression. But your friend or loved one with depression is probably not thinking this way. So you've got to let them know. Next, you have to let them know it is not their fault. They are absolutely not responsible for being depressed. It is an illness. People aren't responsible for getting other illnesses. They are certainly not responsible for depression. No one deserves to feel that way. Keep it positive. When someone is experiencing depression, a negative thought in their brain will get all of the attention. So you don't want to say things like, oh, you might think there's a stigma, but trust me, there isn't. Because someone with depression, you know what they're going to hear? There's a stigma. You don't want to say things like, people won't judge you. You know why? Because what the person with depression is going to hear is you will be judged. Focus on the benefits. Ask the person, why do you want to seek help? Why do you want to get better? Tailor the information to that specific need. Ask them the advice they would give someone else. When someone with depression is processing information about the self, the depressogenic schema is at its strongest. When they're processing information about other people, the schema does not have much of an influence. We've had a great deal of success writing messages for people with depression. But instead of saying, are you depressed? We say, do you know someone with depression? You should let them know this. Let's say I was depressed. What would you tell me about why these positive outcomes will happen? We did 3 studies that worked every time. We asked people about barriers to help seeking and why they think other people could overcome them. Didn't work at all. Here's another study that we did. We showed people messages about help seeking for depression, but for half, we said, don't watch this the way you normally would. Think about someone you trust. How would they process the information? That worked. When they watched the ad without that very little prompt, it didn't work. You want to get the person with depression thinking about the advice they would give somebody else. This is a great way to make the positive things associated with help seeking salient. Here's the next thing. Don't leave until you set up an appointment. The depressogenic schema is evil, it is strong. It has a championship belt. It's tough. But here's the thing. You can push back that schema temporarily, but you've got about a 5-minute window. It is coming back. But what if during those 5 minutes, you booked an appointment with them? You said, let's go. I'm taking you to an appointment right now. That will make a difference. You get them thinking about help seeking, and then you just say, I'll see you tomorrow. You probably have to start all over again. Depression not only has a huge negative bias in processing, it also leads to cognitive deficits in memory, in thinking, in problem solving. But that is where you come in. As their loved one, you have to make up the difference. If you set an appointment and you say, I will see you tomorrow at 8 a.m., they're not going to want to let you down. And you could absolutely be the difference between life and death in that situation. Another question. Oh, this is about lucky girl syndrome. To be honest, I didn't know what this was, and I did have to ask my 18-year-old daughter. So basically what I was told was that lucky girl syndrome is this idea that if you have a lot of positive affirmations and you believe, I am lucky, this will lead to positive outcomes in your life.
Lucky girl syndrome. Everyone's talking about it, but no one's teaching you how to do it, so listen up.
If you revert back to the mantra of, I'm so lucky, everything is always happening for me, that changes your frequency right there.
You're a magnet to love, success, money, abundance, and you're officially living life on easy mode.
My life has done a complete 180.
Is that true? This is certainly outside my area of expertise, but let me give you my best response. A very big predictor of behavior is believing you have the capacity, the ability to pull the behavior off. If you don't believe you could accomplish something, the likelihood of you engaging, staying engaged, and overcoming barriers is really pretty low. Now, this does not mean that I want someone to think, well, I believe I can fly and therefore I'm going to try it. It doesn't work. Just believing that you're lucky could actually be quite harmful. I don't have to study for this test. I know half the material and I'm lucky. I probably shouldn't cross this street. I'm not positive I'll make it, but I'm lucky. I shouldn't have this extra drink. I might not be able to drive, but I'm lucky. In a lot of ways, believing you could do things could be a great thing when it's done responsibly. When it's done wrong, it can cause a great deal of harm. So like everything else, and I really hate to give the academic answer, it depends. If the outcome of any social media trend is people thinking more positive, that could absolutely be a good thing when it's done responsibly. Thank you so much for spending time with us today on Ask an Academic. Again, my name is Jason T. Siegel, professor of psychology at CGU and the co-editor of the Handbook of Mental Health Communication. It's 500 pages and there will be a test on it.
What was the last game you played?
I was playing Pac-Man before the interview. Last night, I defeated a level Street Fighter. I got excited. I yelled. My daughter, studying for an AP test, comes out of her room, looks at the Street Fighter game, turns to me and goes, "You're a PhD over 50." I just went back to her room.